of Winterfell and King's Landing, I implore you all to follow your queen.
She killed my auntie!
Her actions may seem a bit harsh, but she is your queen.
We follow Jon Snow, Lord of Winterfell!
And I follow my queen.
Stand aside, you fuckers. I've got a few things to say to the Lord of Winterfell.
Shawsey.
Oh, give your balls a tug, John. Your crazy dragon snatch killed a bunch of women and kids.
She did what needed to be done.
I did what needed to be done when I fucked your adopted mom. That doesn't make me king of the Seven Kingdoms, now does it, Jon Snow?
Fuck you, Shawsey.
Fuck you, John. I fucked your mom in front of your father's head on a stick. How about that?
I have strong feelings of resentment towards you.
And I'm starting to resent all the times that your mom had a red wedding all over my freak flag.
Now that is just not appropriate.
It's not appropriate that both of your sisters have more balls than you.
Oh, okay, fine, maybe I'll just go.
Yeah, you just do that. You move to the north with the rest of the snowflakes and take your diarrhea wolf with you. I'll be at Winterfell fucking your ginger sister, you piece of shit. So Game of Thrones Season 8. I'm just going to say it right off the bat. It was obviously the weakest link in the entire series. That being said, people are making a really, really big deal out of this. There are people petitioning to have this entire season basically like reshot. You guys are being kind of babies. Now, to be fair, okay, it is the weakest season in the entire series. There were so many missed opportunities, and it was very apparent that like they really crammed a shitload into these last 6 episodes. Why wasn't it just a normal season? Why wasn't it like 10 episodes long? I feel like that would have made up the difference. Given the fact that they were working within this very constricted time frame and that they didn't have like the specifics, all the specifics on the way Game of Thrones ends, I understand that they had to kind of wing it. Given that, I think they actually did a pretty good job, frankly. I mean, like, there was a lot of shit they crammed into 6 episodes. And this season was entertaining. I mean, come on, episode 3, the battle for Winterfell. The last episode slowed down a lot, but I'm happy that it did because it wrapped up with a lot of the characters. But the 5th episode before that was like all action. It was stressful as hell, but it was all action. Like it or not, the way things turn out, like where each of the characters end up given the circumstances of the situation was like pretty much perfection. It was about as good as it could have been given what happened. Tyrion. I understand that a lot of people are like, but he's the smart one, you know? Why did they make him make so many idiotic decisions? I think that he became kind of blinded the same way that Daenerys did, you know, with the liberation of all these kingdoms and stuff like that. It's like she was the conquering hero who was supposed to just unite everyone, all of the 7 kingdoms, and she turned into Anakin Skywalker. And that's another problem that people brought up, that it was very abrupt, and I am one to kind of agree with that. It doesn't bother me like quite as much as I think it does other people, but it is a legitimate argument. That being said, I can understand why Tyrion would have kind of been on board with her the entire time and through all this, up until the very, very ending, when she pretty much kills everybody. Like 90% of the populace of King's Landing. Up until that point, he was with her, and I get why he was. I still think that he shouldn't have betrayed Varys. I don't think he had to do that. I think that he could have just confided in him, and they could have talked in private. It's not like Varys was going to lead an uprising against Daenerys. Honestly, the biggest problem with Season 8, to me, personally, is Jon Snow. Throughout the entire course of this series, we have been made to follow him. And going back and watching like old episodes like the Battle of the Bastards and stuff like that, it's like Jon Snow is a badass. He is a war hero. He has died and come back because he is supposed to fill a particular purpose. Now, don't get me wrong, he does fulfill that purpose, but everything leading up to that...
My queen, she is my queen. Oh yeah, she's your queen, Jon Snow, great, yeah.
He has no balls. I get that he doesn't want to take the throne. I get that he doesn't want that responsibility. That's fine. But he does have a stake at that throne. Honest to godly, use your power, or I mean your birthright, as a form of leverage to be like, no, you need to cut this shit out. It's not even that he followed her through, because he wanted her to get the Iron Throne. He believed in her, as did Tyrion. The bottom line is that a lot of people believed in Daenerys. That's why they made the stupid decisions that they did. So I can like forgive that to a degree, but it's like Jon Snow's not an idiot. The thing that irked me the most was it wasn't even like to the general populace. He was sort of like, you know, she is your queen. It's like even to people that knew that he was a Targaryen, even to people who knew that he had a rightful stake to the Iron Throne, he would say, she's my queen. I think I said these exact words last video, but at the end of the day, that is my biggest beef with Season 8. Now, as far as the last episode is concerned, I mean, the last episode really, if you think about it, wraps up in the first, like, half hour. And then the rest of the episode is basically just showing you like where the characters end up. And I mean, that's fine because there's a lot of characters and there's a lot of, you know, Jon going to the north, given the circumstances, I don't think was a bad decision. He gets to go there with Tormund, and it's like there's, you know, people there that actually respect him as like a leader, you know? So that makes sense. Having Bran be the king is honestly quite brilliant. I never really thought of it because his character takes such like a backseat, but really, literally, who could you think of to better rule than the Three-Eyed Raven? A keeper of like all the history and an all-knowing being that really doesn't, it's nonpartisan. It doesn't take like a side. It understands where people are coming from, but yet it understands the greater good. What better ruler could you have? And I never really thought of that, you know? I mean, honest to godly, part of me thought that Tyrion was going to take the Iron Throne. But even what happens to Tyrion? When he basically announces, like, the audience grievance that, you know, he's always prided himself on being this, like, intellectual, and he totally screwed up at the end of everything. And now he just doesn't know what to do. And that's why he doesn't want to be Bran's advisor. And Bran's sort of like, no. He was like, you're going to live the rest of your days making up for all the times that you've screwed up. And it's sort of like, I mean, I'm pretty satisfied with that. Daenerys getting killed by Jon Snow was kind of poetic. The dragon melting the Iron Throne was epic. You almost get the sense that the dragon knew he was right, but it's sort of like, that was my mom, and you killed her, and you son of a bitch, and I'm just gonna... None of you are getting the throne. And I like that. I like that sort of like, fuck you that the dragon did before it flew off with her body. I have a lot of problems with what led up to the ending. I have a lot of problems with what were done with certain characters. But even given the shitty circumstances of certain characters, I appreciated the way that they ended the show. And there are a lot of people out there that are saying they're comparing this to like the ending of Lost, which, I mean, I guess that's comparable. But no, because, you know something, with Lost, it was sort of like you almost felt kind of gypped because, I mean, yeah, you got a sense of closure with all your characters, but it was still sort of like, all right, so what did all this mean? What was all of this? And you really kind of realize that they bit off more than they could chew, which I suppose, yes, is comparable to Season 8 of Game of Thrones. But, again, within the events that occurred, all of the characters were wrapped up quite nicely in a way that actually did make sense. But people who are like pushing petitions for like a redo of Season 8, it's like, dude, get over it. There have been way worse disappointments in television. It wasn't the best, okay? But the fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, I'm going to watch Game of Thrones again and again and again and again. And I probably will reflect on how crappy the ending actually wound up being. But again, people are going like way too crazy over this. I think that's really what the bottom line is. It really wasn't like that bad. It was a disappointing ending, but it's not the end of the world. And it's far from the worst ending ever on television. Far from it. Far from it. Anyways, that's all she wrote.